Right into this video. Peace to the collective. As y'all know, we're reacting to Jubilee today. Let's see how this goes. And all right.
Step forward if this statement is true for you. I believe men and women are different but equal.
I know as a woman
Yeah,
that
I'm already inclined to interject, but let me at least let them speak.
I don't have the same physical strengths. Men and women are built differently. I think whenever things are built differently, it's for a reason, right? But at the same time, the amount of limits that have been put on women historically, like the fact that not too long ago we were just allowed to start voting. Even today.
See, I don't even mean to interject as quickly, but even that being the fact, so that she would say that women were just not allowed to vote, wouldn't that imply within itself that men and women are not equal? Because if we were equal forces, they would not be. If we were equal forces, they would not need to be allowed to do anything. They would just have the power to do so. Correct? Not saying that the oppression of the past was adequate for the situation or whatnot, but y'all get the gist that I'm coming from. Let us carry on.
Like the wage gap, just all types of stuff. Like women just
Stuff like the wage gap as well has been debunked tremendously, but that's not the topic of today. Let us carry on.
Don't have a lot of rights that are just, it should have nothing to do with what gender we are to be able to be paid equally or just be treated with respect. So
see, once again, it has nothing to do with what gender you are to be paid equally. If you're a female or male police officer, I'm pretty sure you guys are both getting paid the same for the same position with the same level of education, correct? If in civilization we could get off for paying women less to do the same job, then every true entrepreneur, smart businessman would hire a woman, correct? Because you could just pay them less and you save money to send the third. The wage gap is only the way that it is because men and women choose to go into very different professions. Men go into more difficult and necessary professions. Women tend to go into less paying jobs, which is why there's such a gap in between male and female wages. But that's neither here nor there.
yeah.
I do believe that, of course, there are biological differences between men and women. And of course, there should also be legal equality. Of course, I disagree with the idea that women face systemic discrimination. You just mentioned the wage gap, which has been debunked so many times.
As I just said,
studied evolutionary biology quite a bit. And
Jubilee has a way of bringing on some odd characters to represent certain points. So I'm curious to see whether these are heterosexual or masculine in nature males that they're bringing onto this podcast, which would be very interesting because I'm pretty sure that'll play a role in how these people answer the questions.
the men and women are very different from not just a physical, the bone structure, the neurological department as well as the chemical balances. And also, I don't believe that men and women are equal under the law either, or they should be rather. Children are not equal under the law. And it's not because we hate children, it's because we love them and we want to protect them.
So
I'd like to disagree with that point. I do believe that men and women under the law are indeed equal. It's just how the law is executed and followed through with is not in an equal sense, if that makes sense. For instance, for example, men are incarcerated for 2 times the amount of time for the same crime and such forth. Obviously, I'm using hyperbole here, but essentially, this is true. But the law itself would say that we are equal or would represent us equally, although that is not fulfilled to that extent.
So if you believe we're not equal, then that you're inferring that one would be greater than the other.
Well, so let me
So that's what
chime in
I'm
with my
trying to-
perspective.
yeah.
As far as not being equal, I don't think that necessarily means inferior or superior.
All right. This guy is obviously a low IQ imbecile because with the statement by stating that they're not equal, that within itself would infer that one is superior to the other. Maybe it's in certain aspects, maybe it's overall, but the term equality would mean that we are the same. If we are not the same or equal, then one is superior to the other inherently, correct? Let's carry on.
When it comes to certain things like roles like childbearing, a woman is going to be far more productive and a lot more nurturing than, say, a man. And when it comes to doing a lot more of the heavy lifting and the work, a man is probably going to be more suited for that role. And I don't think that that makes them any better or worse. We are just built, created, and born different.
I would also like to elaborate. I am not saying that they are worse overall or better overall.
They complement
Like
each
he
other.
said, yeah, they do.
complement each other
You know,
beautifully.
They work very well together.
We
when
need
they
each other
are
for
working in that
for
proper-
offspring. I
yeah.
mean, that's part of the beauty of it. And I think trying to equalize them and make them the same and, you know, transition and all that, I don't believe is going to be the most conducive when it comes to the family raising children, but also just for overall well-being.
I want to note that you brought up children being unequal to adults. I just hope you weren't comparing women to children.
Well, obviously, you dumb broad, that was in the comparison. I don't know why dumb broads ask stupid questions.
I mean, it was technically a comparison of women
Okay,
and children.
I don't need you to
suppose.
protect me. I just need you not to harm me. I can.
This dumbass broad. I don't need you to protect me. I just need you to not harm me. If you were capable, see, this is the difference here when it comes to men and women. There is no, I don't need you to protect me. I don't need you to not harm me. Women aren't capable to the same extent of harming men. So a man would never say that. I don't need you to not harm me. That inherently shows that you need protection because you're in fear of being, let us carry on.
Protect myself. I'm very capable of doing what I need to do.
What is my
Okay.
body looking like? Let's give this one moment. Let's give this one moment before we carry on because this is not going to cut it. All right, let us carry on.
Okay, sure.
100%.
I am an incel or an incel advocate.
Yeah,
I
what is
suppose.
going on here? Jubilee brings on the most awkward people to represent males when they have these type of conversations. Who would self-proclaim themselves as an incel, meaning an involuntary celibate? That's very interesting.
I don't hate women at all. I think we're different and they have aspects that are superior to men as well. It's just very contextual on the subject.
Toxic masculinity is real.
I want you guys to understand that these are very low-level, weak-minded males that they bring onto this channel to debate and advocate for the side of being a male. Let us carry on and see where this takes us.
I think that toxic masculinity is definitely a real thing. It's kind of just the idea of what masculinity should be, but it goes wrong a lot of the times, saying that violence, sex, power, being a controlling person makes you a man.
I see it in very unfortunate places, like when the young men
Let me let them finish first.
or boys in my family, even from like toddler age, are told you shouldn't be crying. Boys don't cry. And what that turns into, I see it when I'm in a bookstore and a guy who tries to get my number says, why y'all always gotta act like that? And he sincerely had this like cracking voice, like he was hurt, but it was an entitlement. And that's toxic masculinity. It's saying like, you don't realize how your behavior is harmful.
See, this made absolutely no sense what this woman just said. She started out by saying that toxic masculinity is breathed in the form of children or little boys per se being told not to cry, not to show as much emotion. As men, you have to be stoic. If it's the most dangerous men in the world are the ones that don't know how to control their emotions, that are the ones that are constantly expressing exactly how they feel. These are the ones that end up harming people, the ones that end up inflicting pain on others because of how they feel. As a man, you grow up, and it's good that you're taught to be stoic. It's good that you're taught to be able to keep your feelings on the inside, because sometimes women ask for men to bring their feelings onto the outside, but once they do so, they're not always too pleasant.
What does toxic masculinity mean? Is it character traits? Is it upbringing?
The suppression of feeling for a lot of men, because throughout childhood.
And here we go again with the suppression of feeling. Women don't understand the violence and the aggression that men are capable of. Men weren't able to suppress their feelings 24/7. Society would be in an uproar. Society would not be able to maintain the way that it does, and women themselves would not be safe within society. So I think they benefit from the fact that men have to be stoic, that they have to control their emotions.
They're told man up. So because of that, there's a lot of repression. Repression then is usually channeled into anger for some people, because they don't not always know how to express, because they're told not to express.
So upbringing and
That's part of
environment.
it.
Okay.
Yes.
But not something that's inherently a part of,
No.
of men. Okay.
No.
I think that, when you're showing your emotions, especially to random people, random women in some cases, they will view you as weak. I was raised by a single mother. I love her. She's my mom. I love her. But I could have used being told to act like a man. I think back, there were some cases where I was too emotional, and that negatively affected how I, what happened to me.
See, women will always tell you that they want you to show more emotion. They don't, although without understanding that they're not attracted to emotional ass men. Women are 9 times out of 10 attracted to stoic men. If you can't hold it down, how can I expect you to hold down the family, hold down the future, hold down me? Of course, if I'm constantly coming to you and complaining about this, that, and the third, you're not going to look at me as the rock. And I'm supposed to be the rock. I'm supposed to be the thing that holds everything together. That's not a bad thing, because somebody has to do it.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
What is your definition of weak as a man?
Not being as forward as you could be, not being as honest, or
And it's funny that even this self-proclaimed incel is able to put that 2 and 2 together.
trying to be not as emotional as you don't need to be. You don't have to cry over a cut. I know, sometimes cuts hurt a lot, but sometimes it's necessary to be strong for the benefit of not just yourself, but for the people around you. It's fine to act emotional in certain cases, but I don't think it's fine to act that way with a woman. Maybe, you have a really good friend and he sees you cry, he's your best friend, and you're crying about something really personal. I think that's fine.
I feel like you're conflating two different situations, because you started off with saying a random person or even women. So it feels like, okay, this is a woman that you don't have a bond with or any type of relationship with. And then you mentioned, or in front of your best friend.
The brother said a random person or a woman. He didn't go on to any advances on how or what the relationship would be with that woman. It's just a woman nonetheless.
That's okay to cry. Well, that woman could be your best friend. So.
This is the problem with all right, let me carry on.
And again,
the woman, so.
Because you don't see us as equal, as you said before.
I don't think showing emotions is
Because inherently we're not equal. Men amongst other men aren't even equal. Why would men and women be equal?
a sign of weakness. I actually think it's a sign of strength. Men do live shorter lives, and that's because of a repression of emotions, and that's due to many things that patriarchy
Men do
has.
not live shorter lives because of a repression of emotion. That is inadequate to say. That is false. That is a lie.
Still,
Of emotions.
it has been shown that a person's well-being, their lifespan is shortened when they are not able to express their emotions. In addition, when they don't have physical touch, or when they don't have a partner.
See, the argument here, hold on, let me go back. The argument here was never that a man is not able to express their emotions. It's that a man shouldn't express their emotions in public, in the view side of their woman, whoever's supposed to be seeing them as a rock. It's the reason why parents don't grow up seeing their father cry. Still to this day, I've never seen my father cry. Why? Because he's a man. That doesn't mean that he doesn't cry and he doesn't have emotions, but he has to hold shit down. When we're going through the turmoil, somebody has to hold this shit down. We're going through hell and back. Somebody has to say shit's gonna be okay. It's not that you can't show emotions, it's that there's a time and a place to do so.
Partner to keep them company. We're human beings here. We need to talk to each other. And if you think that our health isn't affected when you're not able to express that you are sad or upset, you're wrong. I think that men's rights activists are only men's rights activists as a response to women expressing that they want more equality. I don't think they focus on.
See, here we go again with women want more equality. Inherently, you show that men and women could never be equal, because if they were, they would take the equality. They would, they wouldn't have to be hand-fed the equality if they were truly equal. I don't say this to sound misogynistic or anywhere of the sort. I absolutely love women. I wish I could provide for every woman in the world. I would lay my life down and die for any woman in my life. But with that being said, inherently we're not equal, because men don't ask for equality. It's been a patriarchal world for all of history for a reason, because men are let me be careful what I say, but superior. And women do not look for a man that is inferior to them. That's never happened.
On actual men's rights issues, and rather it's just an attack on women and feminism.
Today, women have more advantages than men.
I can speak from a hiring standpoint when it comes to things like affirmative action, and there are certain roles that traditionally men and women have been able to serve in, and now women can basically do all of those things, right? Because we've had such a strong advocacy for equal representation in the workplace. Whereas, for example, you'll never find a man as a midwife nurse, and I don't think it's appropriate. That's why there are those differences.
Women in the most important parts of society have an advantage. There's a lot of positions that men simply aren't getting hired at anymore because of the fact that they're a man. And it's not just in the workforce. It's also, I would say, it's a lot easier for a woman to find a relationship, even if she says finding the right guy is so hard. It really isn't. But sometimes for a lot of guys, finding a girl at all is hard.
If I have to consider what I wear before stepping out the house, because I don't want to draw some type of attention, I don't know how many other men have to consider, is this outfit going to be deemed safe for me? Any situation that I've experienced where I physically felt.
Now, this is also a very low IQ individual, because this was not the question. You're going off of topic. We're talking about advantages and disadvantages. You're going too far off of topic here, obviously. And women have a tendency of living in a world or a mindset of, this is how things should be, this isn't fair, this isn't this isn't that, instead of reality. And the reality is, if you do go outside and dress provocatively, you could attract the wrong type of attention from the wrong type of guy, which could potentially put you in a harmful or dangerous situation. That's just the reality of things, and this will never change. There are crazy people in the world. That will never change. This is not a utopia. This world will never be a utopia. So knowing and having that knowledge, why would you go out forth and do so? You're putting yourself in harm's way, and that makes absolutely no sense.
Endangered simply because I don't want to give my number out. It's part of that entitlement for men. You're not entitled a conversation with me. You're not entitled to my number.
That aside, it's are you going to make one example of the entitlement of men when it comes to asking for your number be the all-encompassing thing that all men have a problem when it comes to approaching women?
Well, firstly, it's not just an example. It's not necessarily all men. I don't dislike men. I love sports. I play video games. I have bros. I hang out with dudes.
This is such a dumb broad. Stay on topic.
We just want men to realize that if you have friends that are having locker room talk. As a man, as an ally, please say something to your friends.
Do you think repressing that is
See, women advocate so much for a safe space for women to be able to have, let's say, salon talk or this, that, and the third, but have such a problem with what men discuss in their own private lives, in their own fortitude of a male environment, a male space? This makes no sense to me.
really the solution here, though? If it's in a healthy male space,
There's nothing
I don't think
healthy
that's
about that.
healthy. I think it's
No, I'm
toxic in itself.
I mean, if you're making jokes and you're doing all of that,
Jokes.
This is something that's common among the feminists to make the male gender seem as if they're nothing but harmful, which is quite intrusive.
That are harmful jokes are not healthy because they just lead to people normalizing things. People always say, oh, it's just a joke. But when someone else hears it, they don't realize how that resonates. And again, how that turns into violence. Like, this is not an isolated situation. I'm only thinking of 3 off the top of my head because if I think of too many, I'm going to spiral
so
right now.
what's the alternative? Men shouldn't talk about these things.
No, I
No
think men
one's
can
ever
have a
said
healthy
that.
dialogue. I don't think men have to be toxic in order to have a conversation. I know plenty of men that are able to have conversations about healthy, productive things, just like women are.
Well, it's not obviously something that I have personal experience with, but only 1% of all people on the death row are women in this country. So when women and men commit identical crimes, women are much more likely to, for example, escape the death penalty. And that's just plain sex-based discrimination.
That I agree on.
That's true. Look, I'm thinking about basic needs, like around the globe, the women who don't even have like proper like sanitary like products.
I mean,
What the fuck is this broad talking about? What did she just say?
I have to agree. Just small things like a tax on a box of tampons. Do you think I choose to do this monthly? No, trust me.
We live
So
in a
why?
society where we have to pay for healthcare in an entirety. People don't choose to get injured. People don't choose to be born with disabilities. People don't choose to be born with defects. Yes, I'm not saying, and I honestly think all healthcare should be something that is indeed free. But we live in a society where everything in the area of healthcare is taxed. Everything in the area of healthcare is coming out of somebody's pocket. So it's not just women that have to deal with this issue when it comes to their menstruation. Obviously, yes, maybe that isn't something that they should have to pay for to the extent that they do, but maybe every other health defect and health problem that people have in this world, children, men as well included, shouldn't have to be paid for as well. They're saying that as if it's just it's just an advantage or disadvantage to men or women. It's a disadvantage to all of us. Let us carry on.
Should I have to pay taxes when this is a medical necessity?
We're just like dismissed. A lot of our symptoms, a lot of the things we report, especially women of color, but women across the board are just treated a lot less equally.
I'd say that I'm an advocate for what I believe the role that men play in society. I believe that their views should be expressed openly, that they should be given a platform to do so. And I believed in men unapologetically and unashamedly being men as we were created.
I think in my heart that there are things that men are entitled to. I am all about human rights, and I do consider the rights of every human. But every time I hear of a men's rights activist, I hear anger and I hear very illogical reasoning, and it just boils my blood because it's a setback for all of us.
I feel that the other side does not understand my values.
See, feminists don't understand that women live in a completely different reality from men. In fact, women, to an extent, don't even have to partake in reality.
I think a lot of times when a movement is created, the other side thinks that they're being attacked or think that it's some like attempt at erasure. That's not what feminism is about at all. What do you need a whole men's rights activism movement for? I'm sincerely confused.
Well, I mean, like,
Now, this is where the hypocrisy comes in, because what do you need a whole women's rights activist community for? I'm sincerely confused. Nah, but nonetheless, I think that women would have it better in society right now. Now, in terms of No, in terms of women can do exactly and whatever the fuck they want to do, especially in the Western world. Women are freer than any other women, than most men in third world countries, correct? Women are free to do absolutely whatever the fuck that they want to do. This oppression that they speak on, especially in the Western world, is confusing to me, because this is the freest that anybody has ever been in our society, and they have men backing them, protecting them, and willing to fight for anything that they're willing to push. Because if it wasn't for the weak men, or quote unquote strong men behind the feminist movement, behind the things that these women want to push, then it would simply not be, they would simply not get pushed. There's an underlying force of violence behind any and everything. If I tell you 1 + 1 is 2, and you tell me 1 + 1 is 3, at that point it's up to whoever's willing to back their idea when it comes to physical interaction. And if he or she that says it's 3 comes out on top, then I guess it's 3, correct?
I will
You say that to make, I only say that to express to you guys that these feminists are only willing to push these, are only able to push these ideas because there are men willing to die behind them. If there wasn't, they wouldn't.
Advocate for positive masculinity and what men should represent and healthy outlets for men. Like, I still think the Boy Scouts should be exclusively the Boy Scouts, for example, one of those things. Where I would like to think that we could get some common ground is when it comes to the clear biases that are in the court system, especially in the marriage and family court system, right? And right there is what I would advocate for when it comes to men's rights.
The things that stand valid, like that I'm hearing from y'all that are like valid to me, come from a place of like, I'm treated like unfairly by the system, versus a lot of the things women are saying. It's also America and the system as well, but a lot of it is like harm from men.
How and where?
How and where what?
Where's this harm from men coming from?
Okay, it started when I was young. I'm not going to talk too long.
See, now here she goes personalizing the topic and associating her own personal experience with the rest of the world. Let us carry on.
I was 16, got a bottle thrown at me because I told a boy no. It started when I was in a club.
These individual incidents do not speak for the whole society. Like, the world is not perfect. People are fucked up. There are crazy men in this world. I will admit to that. That does not mean that all men are this way. That does not mean that all men are your oppressor. That does not mean that all men are not behind you.
A boy touched me. I said no. He kept touching me. It got to the point he got violent. It gets to the point that the only reason
something strategic that feminists do, because they'll make something personal, which nobody can verify here or there, and they'll make a personal attack about it, so that if you do have anything to say about this, they would make the case that you're invalidating their experience, which their experience isn't valid, but it's anecdotal, essentially.
Decided to stop touching me in the bookstore I talked about earlier is because he realized my husband was not too far away, and he said, sorry, bro, never said sorry to me. That's why, and that's off the top of my head. This is why I get upset, because I'm like, I'm here to talk about like how you feel, but when you just dismiss the fact that women actually have experiences,
see, there's a reason why he said sorry, bro, and didn't say sorry to her. Not saying that he was right for it. Don't get me wrong, not saying that he was right for it, but at the end of the day, the only person that could have checked him in that situation was her man. Why? Because she is not physically capable. Therefore, men and women are not equal physically, nor in any other aspects. We're different. We're completely different almost every single way. There's a reason why he didn't fear a reaction from you, but feared a reaction from another man, because that's his match. That's his equal. Even that the other man could even have been his superior. Equality is a fallacy.
When it seems like it's about more than your rights. It seems like it's about your ego. And that's where I get pissed off, because how dare you tell another human being that their experiences, what they're telling you right in front of your face, is not valid.
I didn't say they were in.
Did she not just start off by saying that the men's right activists' points, experiences, and values were not valid? But let us carry on.
Valid. I said how and why. I'm trying to understand.
How and why? Because it happened.
And you see that these women get triggered. They're dealing with ongoing trauma from the past. This is why the case with a lot of feminists, actually. They've never healed from what hurt them, so they go on and bleed onto the world of men. Just because one man hurt you, just because your father was this way, does not mean all fathers were this way. Just because your boyfriend did this, does not mean all men are going to do this. Just because your brother left you this way, does not mean all men are going to do so.
It happened many times. It happened yesterday. It
why I'm
happened the day
here.
before.
Okay, I think some of the things that you guys are touching on, such as the court system and gender roles, are a subject of patriarchy. And that's
No,
part of what
that's-
women are trying to dismantle, is those traditional.
Women are trying to dismantle patriarchy. So what all live happy in the excuse me. So what, we can all live happy in a utopic matriarchy? There's a reason why no matriarchy has stood the test of time. There's a reason why it's been a patriarchal world since the beginning of time, because this is the order in which things are supposed to go. Women cannot fend for themselves. Whatever matriarchal society lived on before, for however, didn't even live long enough to be documented. Why? Because the men probably came along and destroyed it, took it over, and conquered the society. This inherently would show you that men and women are not equal. Let us carry on.
Gender roles.
Are there any
There's
feminist
this-
organizations that have done anything, for example, to challenge bias against men and fathers in the
Yes,
family court system?
absolutely.
Can you please give me a list of feminist advocacy organizations
Look.
that have engaged in any meaningful advocacy to address those issues? Because there are actually none.
Okay, I know that you came with your little research or whatever. I didn't come with a list of feminist organizations, but I know actively that there are women's organizations.
This dumbass broad. I want you guys to understand this dumbass broad. I know you came with your little research and da-da-da-da. I did not come with. Why do you come to discuss a topic and not research it prior and get upset with other people for having done their research and then try to imply your whatever you think is going on in the world that is not going on is actually going on? You have no proof, no research, and nothing to back it. But you're so convinced that you're right. This is what's wrong with the world today.
That are trying to dismantle those
Just one?
inequalities.
And can't give one example or organization. She looks stupid. She just looks. Fellas, observe this. Ladies, observe this.
This one
Again, I didn't
organization.
come with a list, my dude.
There are
He
no
asked you for a list. He asked you for just one. Just one. You're making a case for this being prevalent in society, but you can't even list just one organization that ever fought for any of the things that he's speaking on. Interesting.
organization.
The benefits of Grammarly Premium.
A premium plan with
In what ways are men's rights at risk?
I think there has been significant progress over the last decade or so, especially in the legal field. But I think there are still significant disparities that need to be addressed, such as poor health conditions, bias against men in the criminal justice system, bias against men in family courts, and bias against men in the educational system, especially in colleges.
Men and women should be allies.
Men, unfortunately,
Now, this is a dumbass question. And see, I paused it at men, unfortunately. I'm curious to see what this stupid broad has to say, but this is a dumb question. Inherently, men and women were created for one another. This is why we are weak in certain aspects that women are strong in, and women are weak in certain aspects that we are strong in. We inherently were created to support one another. Of course, men and women should be allies. What type of anti-heterosexual question would this be?
many of them don't want to even have this open dialogue that we're sharing right now. We need men to help be allies, to help speak to other men.
It strikes me like the way you phrase this, you almost want men to say certain things that you want them to say, as opposed to maybe actually listening to what they're saying.
What certain things would I want to
Just
hear?
kind of like men being allies, men talking to other men, etc. I'm completely okay with that, but I'm not going to repeat like feminist talking points to other men.
We all believe different things. We may be under the label of men's rights activists, but for example, I'm probably the most traditionalist person here. I think we should be allies, but maybe us being allies in a patriarchy wouldn't be so bad. You know, us going back to the—
There's no way for us to be allies in the matriarchy. It's not a male's world to be beneath the woman. It's not. This is not how God wired society or the male and female interdynamics to work. There's no way we could ever be allies in a matriarchal society. Why? Because they are. I have to be careful what I say, but fuck it. Men are the superior when it comes to running a civilization. Why do you think that men get paid more? Because they partake in all of the roles that it takes to run a civilization, all the way from the president of the United States, all the way down to the plumbers, the construction workers, the carpenters, the welders, the fucking technicians, the mechanics. Like, it's bottom to top. Men partake in every single role in which it takes to run a society. And not saying that women don't, but obviously not to the extent that men do. So it would make sense for us to live in a matriarchy. We'd have to coexist and be allies within the patriarchy, like we've done since the beginning of time.
The past wouldn't be so bad. It would probably be a lot happier if we were, getting married and staying married and having kids and, going to church and all that. La-di-da-di-da.
While speaking the three of you, I feel like you're each coming from different perspectives. So it's hard to, again, just like the
This dumbass broad.
our perspectives, it's hard to generalize. So to me, I feel like
Man, I know I'm sounding crazy right now. I love women, man. Don't get me wrong. I just dislike idiocracy. I dislike low IQ. I dislike dumb statements. I dislike unreasonable people.
there are certain things that, even though we're not fully agreeing on it, things may get lost in translation, our verbiage may not be 100% correct, that we could at least agree on.
Can I ask one question?
Mm-hmm.
What would you envision would be the ideal man with the end goal of feminism as far as educating men or working to dismantle whatever patriarchy is? Like, what does that man look like?
It starts with childhood. We have to teach children as well as girls, because we're also taught, because of toxic masculinity, what a man should be as well.
I think that we just
see, this is another thing that feminists like to do, is take traditional gender roles and correlate that to toxic masculinity. This is how men have been since the beginning of time. This is how men were raised to be stoic and within complete control of their emotions, express their emotions at a certain time, and there's a certain place to do so for the beginning of time. What do you think it means to be strong, to be stoic, to be a leader, to be the rock? It means you can't be the one crying all the time. It means when shit's going bad for you, guess what? Shit's going left for other people too. So you have to be the one that holds everybody together, even if you're going through hell and back. This is what it means to be a man.
need to hold men accountable. In order to kind of make progress, we need help from people that will listen, because let's be real, when we express our concerns, a lot of men refuse to listen, but they would be more likely to listen to another man.
Do you also feel like you have an ethical obligation to challenge other women or other feminists when, for example, they deny that men face discrimination?
When it comes to things like, oh, men can't be abused. I've had this conversation with another woman, and it's the idea that just because a man may be physically stronger than us, does that mean they cannot be abused? And because of that, again, fairness, women need to be held accountable as well. I want to understand their viewpoint. As a woman and a woman of color, I know how it feels to be disenfranchised. So I want to understand why they feel the need to have a men's rights movement.
I feel empathy for the other side.
I don't think there's ever a time in my life where a person says they're hurting and I don't at least try to listen or understand. My only thing is that I want the same in return. So when I'm genuinely saying I'm hurting or I've been through something.
We're not talking about what you want in return. We're talking about what you feel for the other side. She managed to get out one sentence about the other side and then regurgitate everything back towards herself. this is something that's common in the feminists. They're usually what you would call narcissistic. But it's funny and ironic because they're usually the main first ones to accuse somebody else of being so.
And it's not just a personal experience, because I actively do this work and surround myself with women saying I've been hurt by a man before. I get that you have stories, but I mean, that's actually my question. I haven't heard y'all stories. Like, I've sat up here and said I have 3 on the top of my head. I have about 30 plus probably. And I haven't heard y'all say, this is what happened to me.
I don't think that I'll ever invalidate.
See, because men's prerogative is not to go up and complain about what's happened to them and this, that, and third. This is not the topic of the conversation. The fact that you decided to dig into your own personal life is okay. That's fine. That's fine, but that's not the topic of the conversation.
A woman's feelings when she says, hey, I've been abused or whatnot. I don't think any of us here are rightfully saying that. But I think what's dangerous is when emotional testimony that may not always be what it is gets, creates bias, right?
Okay, I feel empathy for women being lost, being misguided. Look,
this guy's a G. This brother's a G, goddammit. Even though he's a self-proclaimed incel, I'll say it. This nigga's a G. Not nigga, but you know what I mean.
I don't know. You can go.
Do you have any bit of empathy for anything?
Elaborate on your point, please, brother. This is one thing men cannot do. Do not make a statement and do not be able to back it up. Elaborate on your point, because I thought you were getting on to something there.
Yes, I really
He
do.
actually is correct that the woman, in saying that the woman has been misguided, has been misled, and has been led into the wrong direction.
Feel empathy for
Why
repetitive, forgive me, but yeah, I get the point.
was that so hard to say? Like, for the stuff that we said, do you have any bit of empathy for the stories I said up here?
Yeah,
I just want to know.
This woman keeps bringing it back to her story. She is such a narcissist. Okay, we get it. Nobody gives a fuck, bro. You can't make anybody give a fuck. And I'm not invalidating her experience. It's just if the brother does not give a fuck, then the brother doesn't give a fuck.
I do.
Like,
Yes.
I'm not even trying to be hostile. I just genuinely want to know.
Yeah, I just think that like a lot of the problems that have happened in your life are because society is not patriarchal. It's not traditional. It's we're gone.
That's actually a good point that this brother brings up about how society actually isn't traditional. So all the traditional things, tendencies, and gender roles and whatnot that they're complaining about don't even apply to this generation, because society is not in that way anymore. Society is actually pretty liberal now, and that's not necessarily a good thing. To see what liberalism has done to the world, maybe that actually has more of a correlation to the things and the experiences that you've went through than you deciding to blame patriarchy for all of these things.
We're in a fallen state, right?
There is a change of guard, not necessarily a change of guard, but things are evolving, things are changing. And I feel like a lot of men speak from a viewpoint almost of fear. A lot of men are having a hard time grasping that and feeling comfortable with it.
I do feel empathy for your personal experience, but I cannot sympathize with your ideological position, because that ideological position is built on a fallacy. And that fallacy is actually causing very real consequences for men as a class in this country.
This brother's a G. God damn it.
Country. So I understand that you are here with us as kind of the good feminist, so to speak, that you feel empathy for men, and I believe you, but I do not believe your movement, and I do not believe your ideology.
All right, we'll leave it at that. That's a wrap, guys.
All right. Things to take away from this conversation. One, the feminist female is absolutely incapable of seeing the world outside of their own viewpoint, outside of their own experience. The world is more than what you went through, what you've undergone, just because you were treated this way by this specific male, your father, your brother, your boyfriend, your friend, your best friend, whatever it may be, does not mean that all males in the world are now the problem because all males will act in this way. The fact that patriarchy has gotten us this far and a matriarchal society has never seemed to exist for long enough for them to be documented should tell you that maybe history's saying that's not the way to go. Women want equality, and equality within itself is a fallacy. Men amongst other men themselves are not equal. So how could a man and woman be equal? There's truly nobody's equal. There's no such thing as true equality. The only reason why things are the way that they are is because men throughout society have tried to bring it as close as possible, because it'll never be that. I don't understand what the overall goal of the feminist movement is, especially in the Western world where women can do whatever they want, say whatever they want, wear whatever they want, pursue whatever career they want to, do whatever they want to. I don't know why women in the Western world feel that they are so disadvantaged and that they're so taken advantage of by men, when if they spent a day in a Western or in a third world country, they would see what real oppression looks like. If they spent a day in the 1670s, they would see what real oppression looks like. And it's funny and ironic because women have more freedom than ever today. But yet the ratings of happiness are an all-time low, going back to the 1970s and so forth, correct? Women have more freedom than ever before, but yet more and more of them are on antidepressants, more and more of them are seeking mental therapy, more and more of them are unhappy with their lives. Why is this? Let us end this live stream. Peace to the collective. It's your boy, King Katumwa. We out.